Public Health England have admitted tonight that nearly 16,000 cases of coronavirus between the 25th of September and the 2nd of October were not included in daily figures for that period and not transferred to the contact tracing system. Some of them were included in the figures published yesterday and today. The latest daily figure shows 22,961 cases recorded for the last 24 hours. 33 deaths were also recorded. That's of people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. And that takes the total number across the UK to 42,350. And our health editor Hugh Pym is here in the studio. So on these nearly 16,000 cases which we're only now seeing recorded in the figures, Hugh, how did that happen?
Well, it seems as if it was an IT error, but quite an extraordinary announcement late this evening that nearly 16,000 of these positive tests weren't put into the system. And by a quick calculation, it looks as if what we thought were around 7,000 daily reported cases at the end of last week were actually more than 11,000, compared with about 7,000 a week earlier. Now, Public Health England have said it didn't affect anybody getting their test result. They were all told in the normal way. But something seems to have broken down between the labs carrying out the tests and then the data being put into the test and trace system. So it means that the contacts of these people who tested positive weren't actually approached because the test and trace system didn't have their details. So up to a week was lost in not following up those contacts. So that is quite a serious situation. Now, we're assured that this IT problem has now been contained, that all the extra cases have been added in for yesterday and today, and they should revert back to something akin to what we've been seeing before. And we should also say there are other bits of data that show that there could be a levelling off in cases. But it comes at a very awkward moment for the government. They're trying to get confidence in test and trace and work out how the virus is spreading. And then this error comes along.
Hugh, thank you very much. Well, earlier the Prime Minister warned that the UK faced a very tough winter with the virus, but that he hoped things would be radically different by the spring. Labour accused him of failing to set out a serious strategy. Ian Watson's report contains some flashing images.
How times change. Despite a big election victory, many of Boris Johnson's winning policies have been obscured by the coronavirus crisis.
Temperature check here.
The political temperature is rising, with COVID cases going up and his poll ratings coming down. Today he acknowledged people's frustrations, but delivered the grim news that it might not be all over by Christmas.
They're furious with me and they're furious with the government.
They are.
But, you know, I've got to tell you, in all candour, it's going to continue to be bumpy through to Christmas. It may even be bumpy beyond.
Labour are accusing him of losing control of the virus. He acknowledged that testing needed to improve and promised that it would.
It is not perfect, Andrew. I'm not going to claim it's perfect.
Certainly not.
Am I frustrated with it? Yes, of course I'm frustrated with it. Am I going to blame NHS Test and Trace and attack the thousands of people who are I think doing a good job? No, of course I'm not. But I take full responsibility for the service. I think by international comparators it is really very, very good indeed.
Boris Johnson will speak online to his virtual party conference this week, and some of the faithful want him to reflect on his performance as Prime Minister. I've been speaking to some long-standing Conservative MPs and some of the new intake, and quite a few of them say they still want further proof that Boris Johnson, having battled the virus himself, is still up for the job. And some say they'd like to see the old Boris back, the man who used to denounce the doomsters and gloomsters, but who these days seems to be the bearer of bad news.
This is a government that's facing an unprecedented crisis, and I think that if people wanted me to approach it with, you know, the sort of buoyancy and élan and all the qualities that I normally bring to things, I think people would think that was totally inappropriate.
And as for his health,
the issue is that when I, alas, got this Richard thing, I was too fat.
But now
I am fitter than several butchers' dogs.
Okay.
As for other people's health, households in Oldham have been living under enhanced restrictions since August, and some want to know when this will end.
I do think it's going to destroy Oldham. Not a lot. I mean, pubs are restricting people coming in. People aren't going in.
We need to abide by the rules so then it won't last longer than it has to.
Labour says more clarity is needed on when and why restrictions are imposed.
We're not going to blame the British public like Boris Johnson tried to do.
We're not local.
We're proud of what the British public are doing. We understand why local restrictions may be needed, but I think it's Andy Burnham who's been saying it's a bit like Hotel California. Places go into these restrictions, you check in, but you can never leave.
Boris Johnson says we should go forward without fear, but with common sense. But it seems that balancing act may have to be maintained well into the new year. Ian Watson, BBC News.
Well, as the Conservative conference gets underway online, what is the mood of voters in two of the constituencies held by the party? Our Deputy Political Editor, Vicky Young, has been exploring that in two Wiltshire seats, South Swindon and Devizes.
The Butlers have ambitious plans for their Wiltshire farm. It's been in the family for generations and they've adapted with the times. Richard's a Conservative supporter, but he's worried about a no-deal Brexit.
That would be a disaster for farming and could impact really badly on the next generation.
And he wasn't impressed by the government's threat to break international law by going back on the Brexit withdrawal agreement.
I was actually quite shocked by that, and if you look at all the people right around the world who've condemned that, I think that was a severe misjudgment.
As for Boris Johnson's leadership,
it's not a very optimistic time, so he doesn't look comfortable in his own shoes at the moment, and as I say, he's got difficult choices to make.
Most of those are about the response to the COVID pandemic, which could define Mr Johnson's premiership. The heart of Wiltshire is natural Conservative territory, but even here the fallout from dealing with a pandemic is straining some of those old loyalties. There is a lot of sympathy for Boris Johnson as he confronts this unprecedented situation, but there's also concern that at times his government has appeared incompetent. In Marlborough, the Polly tea rooms are packed, but others in the hospitality industry are watching businesses go under because of restrictions.
Currently, I don't believe they've been out to help any entrepreneur.
Hattie's catering company folded a few months ago.
I have no loyalty to the Conservative government at the moment. They've got to pull some massive things out of a bag.
We don't know exactly which way or which direction we're going. We need to somehow find a way and direction to get this country back on its feet, or else it's not going to recover for years to come.
A few miles away in Swindon, playtime's returned at the Kids About Centre. With restrictions likely to go on for months, the Scott family says it's time for everyone to pull together.
I wouldn't want Boris Johnson's job. Absolutely not. And to be fair, I think he's doing a cracking job. He's our Prime Minister, whether we like it or not. And we need to get behind him. If we don't get behind him, we're going to be in a situation where it's just going to get worse and worse.
I really believe they're trying to do what they think is best. They're trying to juggle the economy to people's safety and health, and that's a really hard balance.
I just think a house divided won't survive. So if we're, as a nation, we need to come together, and if we come together and support and go through mistakes and learn from them, then we're winning.
Mr Johnson faces more difficult challenges over the next few months. His own MPs are hoping he has a tight grip on the situation. Vicky Young, BBC News, Swindon.